That's when you know you done got yourself where it's supposed to be. Okay, here we go. All right. Great evening, everybody. Let's see what pops on the screen. Um, Great evening. Welcome to Let's Talk About It Tuesday. I can never find my thing here. Where is this? Okay, for our newcomers, there we go. I found it somehow. So I am the dynamic, daring, one-of-a-kind diva, Denise Silas. I welcome you to our Let's Talk About It Tuesday. I am the founder of Empowered by DS, a business that I do with my two daughters, Alea and Amani. And the whole purpose of our business is to be able to empower women to be the best version of themselves in the current season of their life. So we do it in multiple ways. Weekly, we're here every Tuesday for the most part, at least 99% of the month. We are here doing our Tuesday night talks with variety of conversations, you guys. We've had from, things medical, things just how to balance with your, loss of your mom, to I have children that have special needs, to, the conversation on tonight. I mean, we've had financial, so it's all things. So if you have any conversation that you would love to have, either I have an expert that comes in, just school wise, or we have a somebody giving a testimony. So I promise you, now that you're in our network, you'll get the communication, just letting you know what the subjects are. Some of them may not appeal to you, but you may know of somebody. So help us empower other women as well. So we hope that you would share that information. Then on a monthly basis, we do what's called Diva Dinner and Dialogue. What that is our opportunity to kind of have some social self-care, get together with some girlfriends that are like-minded to have dialogue about the things that matter the most for us. So we are able to, through conversation, create connection and community. So our next one is on November 7th, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Then quarterly, I host empowerment workshops, and that's all about building you as an individual for your personal and professional development. We have our last one of this year. It's going to be on this coming Saturday. It's Q4, and that's all about really helping women to finish this last quarter strong, but with grace, and just to be more intentional about setting up your next year. And then yearly, we host what's called our Vision to Victory. So one of our workshops in January is a vision board workshop. My whole passion is to have women stay with me all year long to help them stay in tune to what they're focused on, and to make sure that by the end of the year, we are able to celebrate them however they want to be celebrated. So our Vision of Victory is really a big celebration party, honoring the women that's in our tribe. Let me go back up to quarterly. We also do a quarterly empowerment box as well. So variety of things. We just finished our yearly Feel the Teal for Ovarian Cancer Awareness. We're about to launch our annual Adopt a Grandparent program. So we have a variety of things that we're doing to support women, and this some of the things that we're focusing on here. So also we have on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, look us up, Decide Tribe. Our Decide Tribe stands for Divas Empowering and Connecting Individuals Who Dare to Excel. So we're all about supporting each other. I'm known to flip switches and push buttons. So my goal is to help your light shine, help you identify that area, to flip that switch so that you can shine and push your button so you get out your comfort zone. So we're excited about being that support for women. This is our next Tuesday. It's all about leadership. Dr. Precious is going to be sharing with us. She's an expert in leadership, but it's about leading your ship. So how do we lead ourselves first before we start to want to lead other people? Because we're all, even though you don't have a title, ladies, you are probably leading in some kind of way. Even though you may not have people that report to you, you are making an impact, because leadership is nothing but influence. So she's really going to talk about making sure that we are self-aware. So I'm excited about that. And then we have a couple great things lined up already for November. So come on, share with other women. And at any time you want to know what it is, you just text talk to the number that you get the text from. That's how we communicate. That's our communication number as well. our empowerment box. Every quarter we have an empowerment box that was created because we wanted to be able to give women something to, one, as a happy for themselves, but two, to be able to help them stay focused on what their vision and their goals is. It's all about them unapologetically being able to be accountable to themselves. So if any of these questions you can say yes to, you would the empowerment box could be for you. And even if you don't get one for yourself as a subscription, you can always get a one-time box. Also, it works as a great gift to share with other women as well. So I've had people where somebody's just had a baby, somebody's celebrating a birthday, got a promotion at work. They have been able to use that, the gift box, that service that we offer as well. So our this is our current theme: get up, go hard, and let God is the current theme of the box. And we've had Focus and Fabulous, Empower Me is the name of the subscription box. We had Better and My Best. So it's always things that's going to support you and just staying in a good headspace and being able to focus on the things that matter. Here, just the last, just a list of the last things that we're doing for this quarter. That, as I mentioned, the workshop on Saturday. And the thing about this workshop on Saturday is going to be hybrid. So you can either register to be in person or you can do it virtually as well. So the virtual option is $25. You get a workbook. I promise you guys, I work you. I work your mind and really having you to dig deep. You have time to really process it. But I am excited about it. The theme of it is finishing the race with grace. And we have an acronym for grace. So I'm really excited about that. So I hope you do it for yourself or share it with somebody else as well. And if you're not able to stay the entire time, you'll also get the recording and the workbook from it as well. So these are some of our upcoming things that we have, because we're all about experiences. We do everything about experiences. This is a little bit more information about Saturday's workshop. You can always text back to that number if you wanted to come directly to your phone, the word Empower Me as one word, and you can get the same information directly to your phone. Then for this information, if you want to send the word DDD, the 3 letters DDD, this information comes to your phone. But this is our November 7th. In addition to our normal Diva Dinner and Dialogue, we're having a pop-up shop, so featuring some small businesses as we get ready to prepare for the holiday season. And then we're going to do what's called our Queen's Corner, giving our young ladies, not only just us, but young ladies that have the opportunity to come. They'll spend time with Miss Black Mississippi. She's going to pour into them and just really encourage them. Each of the ladies that come will get a crown and a sash, be able to take pictures with her. You have the option of coming with dinner or without dinner. So if you do the without dinner, it's just $15 for the experience. If you want dinner, then it's $30 for the adults and $25 for the children. But it's definitely, I'm very excited about the opportunity to be able to pour into our young ladies as well while we're pouring into ourselves. So check that out. Just text DDD back to that number. You'll get the information right to your phone as well. So if you want to know the things that we're doing, just check out our website, Empowered by DS. You can also check us out on all platforms, Empowered by DS, on all social media. If you have any questions for me, you can always email me at empoweredbyds@gmail as well. But please connect with us also on our Decide Try Facebook page. And then I'm also on LinkedIn as well. That's my newest platform that I'm trying to master. So, but definitely, we would love for you to connect with us. So, oh my gosh, I forgot to change the name. I do apologize. So let me just go and stop that share because it don't have the right name on it. How embarrassing that is. So,
no, you're fine.
So, yeah, I'm still working on being fabulous, y'all. Just bear with me, be patient with me. But I'm excited. First of all, I want to say to you, Kimmy, they say there's fortune in the follow-up. So we met at an event, right? She reached out to me and we had some dialogue at that time. And then later on, and at that time, I didn't even have Let's Talk About It Tuesday. Like in that season, I didn't even do that. And then eventually, I remembered our conversation and then invited her. She said yes to be able to come on to my generic form of a podcast, I guess. But really just a comfortable way to really get topics to women, you guys. Not trying to be any fancy or formal, but just really passionately trying to get information to women. So before I introduce you, I did want to say thank you for sometimes we go to these events and you have good intention but don't always get to connect. So I appreciate you for following up with that. And we've had a couple conversations. So I knew we were going to, when the time was right, we were going to be in there together. So I'm excited to have you on tonight. So let me introduce you guys to Miss Kimmy. And I definitely want you guys, if you're on here for the first time, please put it in the chat, put in where you're tuning in from for us as well, and then how you found out about it. So where are you from? Is it your first time? How did you learn about Empowered by DS? So thank you. And I see some faces that I know and some new faces as well. So I appreciate all of you being on here tonight. So Kimmy Webb is the founder, executive director of Unity Services Alliance, a domestic violence resource established in 2025 to support survivors within Shelby County and surrounding counties. She's worked in domestic violence and abuse of all kinds for over 15 years. She's certified in domestic abuse, education, and advocacy with a BS in criminal justice. Her mission is to aid those who need support from violence and all forms of abuse through collaboration and education. Unity collaborates with a multitude of agencies who are vetted and dedicated to the mission of survivor safety and family reunification. She aims to bring peace to a community riddled with homicides and severe injuries due to intimate partner and family violence. It is her passion and purpose to give voice to the voiceless and work diligently with her state's leaders and law enforcement in a proactive manner towards restorative peace. So I introduced you all the way from somewhere in the United States of America, Miss Kimmy Webb. So before you jump in, what I always like to ask people, the very first question I always love to ask is, what brought you, I'm going to spotlight you, what brought you to do this work? What made you start doing this work? I'm going to spotlight you. There you go.
All right. Well, good evening. And thank you, Ms. Denise, for the warm welcome, as well as, following up with me as well. I know, like you said, we followed up. But I started this being a child of domestic violence. So I grew up in a home where domestic violence was present. I always vowed that was something that I wasn't going to do. And I worked very hard to keep domestic violence out of my own home, raising my own children who are both on here tonight. So I thank them. And it was one of those things where I became passionate. I lost a good friend of mine years ago. Actually, I was pregnant with my youngest daughter, and I lost a really good friend of mine to domestic violence. And that just kind of sparked something in me that I just felt away, and I knew that I had to do something. And that was over 23 years ago. And so that has, kind of fueled my passion to kind of take on the pledge and kind of do something in the community, because somebody has to say something. Somebody has to do something. There's too many people sitting and suffering in silence. And then the ultimate happens. And then you have a lot of the, I wish, I coulda, I shoulda, I didn't know. And so when you know more, and I feel like education surrounding domestic violence is important.
Awesome. Well, take it away. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Well, good evening again. Like I said, thank you to everybody that showed up tonight to hear little old me. I've been blowing them up with links and different things of that. So thank you all for showing up for me, and some of the ones that I don't know and that are on your community or platform. Welcome this evening. I'll do my very best to give you some recognition and responses to domestic violence surrounding the education and what domestic violence and abuse is. So I'll share my screen and we'll get started, and we won't hold you all night because it's a work night for most of us. All right. So I'll share my screen. Make sure I grab the right one, as you said. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
It's coming up.
Okay. Let me know, because I can no longer see you. So I don't know if you all can see my screen.
There it is.
Okay, perfect. So, as Ms. Denise said, I'm the founder of Unity Services Alliance, established here in Memphis, Tennessee in 2025, following the abrupt closure of the Family Safety Center. Some of you have heard my spiel before. I have some of my business partners on here as well that has taken a pledge to follow and join along and collaborate with Unity Services Alliance. So I thank them. In particular, I like to recognize them at the very end of it, because I'm going to give them some shout outs, because we are doing all miraculous work and we thank you for this platform. So as you can see, we're going to recognize and respond to domestic violence and abuse, and we're going to educate a little bit on how to be supportive and encourage those individuals who are trying to get to safety. So just a small disclaimer, just some of the information that we'll talk about tonight may be a little disturbing, unsettling. If it jars you or anything like that, go ahead and just click off. I don't want to make anyone feel triggered or cause any distress. However, domestic violence is a trauma, it's a trigger, and it's one of those things that unfortunately we have to talk about because it's happening every day. All right. So pretty much we'll talk about domestic violence. You can kind of see from the picture. There's a lot going on here, and I can't see you all. So if you can just unmute and kind of tell me some things that you see in this picture. What does this picture say to you when you think about domestic violence?
Afraid to say something.
Okay.
Putting on a smile even though she's not happy.
Okay.
Abused, of course, from the black eye.
Okay. Anybody else?
Seeming to want to do the black eye, but still want to cover up, maybe with the fake mouth.
Absolutely. And all very, very good descriptions of this picture, which definitely speaks to what a lot of survivors are dealing with right now. And I use the term survivors and not victims, because she still has breath and she's still alive, which means she still has a choice in order to make the next step into safety and to hopefully get out of that situation. So you can just kind of see we have a few bullet points tonight. We'll kind of go through them. We won't, keep you long, but we'll speak a little bit about them. We just kind of went over my bio, so we don't go over it again. Is there a question? I think I heard something.
I was just going to say, Sister Kimmy, you do know that, males as well in domestic violence as well. Maybe verbal abuse, because I've seen the verbal part.
Yes. And we'll talk about that too tonight for sure. Miss Lucretia. I think that's Miss Lucretia, right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, absolutely. So, and speaking about domestic violence, so we know that domestic violence is something that we know is something that's very disturbing, right? And it affects most of us in one way, inadvertently or directly. And so we know family members, we know friends, we know, we've been a victim or a survivor of domestic violence. And so we have to learn to work together as a component, as a community, because domestic violence does not just affect just that person that it happens to. It affects the community and the family that is involved with it and the people that are attached to you. When you see someone and you watch the nightly news and you think about domestic violence and you see something come across, it doesn't just jar that family or that individual. It gives you a sense of trauma or a sense of emotion behind it. And so you have to look at it and say, I'm not in that situation. And you thank God you're not in that situation. However, how do I be supportive? How can I look around in my community or my circle of people and I can be supportive. And so together we have to say no to domestic and family violence. We know family violence is often not talked about. I grew up in an age where we were told things stay in the house. What goes on in my house stays on in my house. And we know that was something that we were taught. Was that a healthy way of dealing with issues and traumas? No, because most of us in these I think we're Gen X's, that we have to now unpack those emotions, those trauma scars. And so that's some things that we have to now start talking about. We have to now be respectful and know about those in relationships, know what a healthy relationship is. And so we have to think about those things. And domestic violence does not happen without this nice little wheel to my left, and I'm sure it's probably your left as well, depending on where you're sitting, without this dynamic of what we call the power and control wheel. And I know Miss Oriana and anyone else who speaks about domestic violence in their presentations, this is one of those things that you can't talk about domestic violence if you don't talk about the power and control wheel, because it's all about power and control in a situation. Like when you have any sort of domestic violence and someone is controlling your environment, they're controlling your emotions, they're controlling money, they're controlling the way your emotions and your behavior, and then they use certain tactics. And so that's where you get that power and that control. They use coercions and threats, right? They use those things such as intimidation, where they may use certain words and phrases that will offer you some sense of intimidation, to where it makes you feel bad about yourself, or make you second guess and make you think, maybe that is true. Maybe I did do that. Maybe if I just do something differently, then I won't be experiencing that, or I won't upset this person. And so all of those things go along on that power and control wheel. You have male privilege, right? I know Miss Lucretia just spoke about the men being involved in it. Male privilege goes a long way, because for a long time, women didn't have a voice. You just had to sit down, be quiet, be seen, and what they say, not heard. And oftentimes you were not even allowed in the room when there were men. And then you have men who are paid more than women in jobs. And so that's a sense of power and control. It may not be of a physical stance, but it still exists. Economic abuse, right? You have people who control the money in the home. If you're the breadwinner, normally you're the person who brings in the most money. But oftentimes it's a manipulation of power, so that if you made you to feel like if you don't do a certain thing, well, I won't pay this or I won't do that. Those are all senses of power and control, and they fall under the wheels of domestic violence. And so then you have what they call the cycle of violence. And so when you have that cycle of violence, that goes along in regards to a relationship. And when you're in that domestic situation, if it's intimate partner, now you have that meeting time when you very first meet someone. And then you go into that, what they have, that honeymoon phase, the dating, the courting, the Netflix and chilling and things of that sort that they have nowadays, until you get to something that gets a little rocky in the relationship. And then you have what they call that tension building. And so now somebody may lose their job. There may be a small sense of you nudge them or trigger them in some certain kind of way. You didn't know that was a trigger to them, or you didn't know that was going to upset them. And so tension starts to build, or you start to separate and not realizing that you're not as compatible as you once were when you first met. And so then oftentimes that leads to what they call the confrontation piece. And that's where you get your arguments, the acting out, the name calling, the threats, possibly even the physical component. It may even involve sexual component, because even though you're dating someone in a relationship, who believes that it's okay for a person to still have the right to your personal body, your personal space, even in a relationship, even in a marriage, if you say no? I can't see you, so if you guys can just chime in. I'm trying to figure out a way to minimize this, but I don't want to take it off the screen from you all.
What I want to comment on a couple things that you said. First, I want to ask you, what would be example of using your children
So a sense of using your children, that's when you take that child and you try to withhold your child. So you're going through that co-parenting dynamic and you just broke up and maybe somebody hurt one or the other. And you can't say normally that it's the woman because a lot of men now are raising their children. And so you have that dynamic where they play patsy against the other parent. And they say, well, you can't see my kids if you don't pay me some money, or you can't see those kids if you don't sleep with me. And so a lot of those things are control, and they use those kids as a pawn in a game that's unfair to not only the children, but it's unfair to yourself, because that's not a way to deal with co-parenting. And I know that Miss Elyse is on here, which is a wonderful parenting for the culture. And I know that she does a fantastic job in speaking about the discipline part of after domestic violence and through that component. And so one day maybe she'll get an opportunity to kind of talk about that on this platform if she's ever given the opportunity. But yes, you can definitely keep the children from the parent, and you play that game, and it's not fair and it's not legal.
And also, Sister Kimmy, you can keep them away from the opposite families.
Absolutely.
Like keep their children, like don't want the children to know the other side of if it's the father, then don't want the children to know this is the other side. This is the father has a side of the family as well as the mother side of the family, but keeping the children from their grandparents or whatever.
Absolutely.
Or
Absolutely.
aunties, uncles, whatever. That is that's a part of control as well.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And ultimately it hurts the children.
Yes.
It hurts the children. It hurts the dynamic of the relationship that they can have on both sides. And that's why I like those certain organizations and communities that forge those relationships and then gets those fathers involved or those mothers involved and get that reunification component back together, because it doesn't do the children any good. And they grow up, and we'll talk about a little bit later on in the presentation about those ACEs that those children start to experience, because they're witnessing, oftentimes they're witnessing it, they're hearing it. They may be in the car, they may be in the room, but the walls have what?
Ears.
They absolutely have ears. And so a lot of people think, oh, they didn't witness it, they didn't see it. And so it takes once that domestic violence component gets started, then you have Child Protective Services who has to get involved. And now with the system the way it is, and a lot of children are witnessing it, they switched the laws here in Tennessee that if a child has not been present at the time of the domestic violence situation, then they still think that the child is in a safe environment if they haven't been struck and they was not present. If the kids say, well, were you in the room? They were asked to be, were you in the room? And they say no. Child Protective Services takes their hand off if there's no physical violence or there's no imminent danger at that component. Even though the kids say, I heard this, I heard this, no, we were in the room, this, they still are allowed to remain there. And those are continued trauma scars that they're enduring. So yes, ma'am, that's definitely a part of it. But finishing up the cycle of violence, they have that after the confrontation, then you get to that reconciliation component, which is where you get your apologies, your denials, your rationalization, those different things where it wasn't that bad. So then you think about, let's stay together. And in those situations in today's society, you're finding more Gen Z couples are choosing to stay and go back to skip over our generation who are now divorcing and leaving after 20 years after you finish raising the kid, or you decide that this is no longer working. Unlike grandmother and granddaddy, they stayed together. And so now this generation is choosing to stay in those components because they want to give their children what they say they didn't have, to the detriment of their own safety. And so that's when a lot of people need to understand what that component looks like in regards to relationship and choosing themselves over safety, over love, making sure that they're intentional about the environment in totality that you're raising your children in. So these are some warning signs. When you get an individual that begins to call out for help and they're ready to take that step, because there's a lot of times where a person gets to about that seventh time of trying to leave a situation when it is unhealthy, it is not going well. I've endured all I can take. They've gotten to that component where they're ready for help, but there is that power and control. And so these are some signs that you would want to pay attention to, right? As a person in a community, because remember, I spoke about it takes a community to be involved. And so instead of having our head down on our cell phone, instead of walking past somebody that may have bumped into you and automatically thinking that that person is rude, that person may be crying out for help, or that person may give you a sign from a car window. And this is the sign that they would give you. And it's simple, with the palm to your thumb in the center of your hand, and they'll just kind of gesture with this component right here. And this sign just lets you know that I need some help, right? Anybody in here knew what this sign was before this slideshow came, before this slide was here?
I saw it on social media, but I did kind of question. I was like, is that real? But that's the only time I had seen it was on social media, like a little video clip.
Yes, it is real. Anyone else ever seen this before, or this is the first time you're seeing it?
I've seen it.
I've seen it.
I've
Okay.
seen the video that she mentioned before. I've seen that before.
I seen it when I used to, but see, I used to work with the deaf and hearing impaired, and I seen it like that, but never have I seen it like somebody crying out in domestic violence.
Okay.
You know,
So-
I'm talking about, there are sign languages that we use. That was back in the day when I really thought I wanted to be a signer for deaf.
Okay, you want to be an interpreter?
I thought I did.
I understand.
I got geared into working with children, and because I was going to do that, especially ed, then I got geared into just K through third.
Okay. So yeah, this right here is a sign that you know you want to be on the lookout, and you want to make sure that if you see this means somebody is ready. They're ready for help. This is a cry for help. And so we want to make sure that we are recognizing what that looks like and how we can be supportive and recognizing what to do. So when you see something like that, let's talk about some responses that we know that we can do as individuals, as community members, as people, as family and friends to those around us, because we have a responsibility, right? If you witness something, it's your responsibility to speak up. When you see something, you're supposed to say something. And so when you respond, when you recognize that, your key point around it is what I said, pay attention to your surroundings, right? You have to make sure that we're aware. You know, it's not going to always come with a hand sign. It may be, they don't always write them on a napkin anymore. You know, they may kind of flash it in the car next to you, right? Instead of us, bouncing to our music all the time and not really recognizing our surroundings, be nosy, right? Be like Pearl from 227. I don't know if anybody in here remember 227, but kind of dating myself. But Pearl sat in that window, right? She knew what was going on in her neighborhood. And so that's what we have to do, because people are losing their lives. Children are suffering, and families are at dismantling, but they're dying inside of the home. And so we have to pay attention to our surroundings. But you want to do this by remaining discreet. Don't place the victim in further danger, right? There's certain things that you can do when you're responding, right? You can attempt to locate law enforcement, see if there's an officer around, see if there's one nearby, right? If you're walking in a mall and someone flashes that sign, go and see if you can identify somebody in law enforcement, right? Let them know. Take note of what that person's wearing. Get a description of the alleged perpetrator from the person that is with them. Know what they look like. Try to guess how high, how tall they are, what kind of clothes they're wearing. Are they baggy? Are there jeans? Are they shorts? You know, what is she wearing? Does she actually wearing a wig? Because it's very simple for someone to slip off a wig if they think that person has alerted to danger, right? And it's very easy to change clothes. So getting a physical description is going to be important. No, you are not a junior investigator. We are not Cagney and Lacey over here. And again, I'm dating myself because I know some of the younger generation probably like, who is Cagney and Lacey? But we are no Sherlock Holmes, but we want to make sure that we are supportive community members when we are working, when we're out in our community. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to contact 911. If there's no law enforcement around, let's alert 911. Let's try to save somebody's life, because you never know if he had told her, when we get home, this is it, right? So now her last resort is, I'm out now. How can I be safe? But if I leave, he knows where my children are. He knows where my family live. He's threatening to kill everybody in my family. And you know how? Because he's beaten me to almost death before. And I believe him. So people often ask, why do they not leave? Why does victims not leave? Why do survivors not leave? That's one of the reasons. They're afraid. And often you don't realize that the first 24 hours after a survivor decides to take that flee and leave are the most dangerous times for them. And so we have to be mindful of that. Because one thing about women, which is, I think most of us here are women, we are very pattern creatures. You know, if you're in a relationship and your mate start to act a little differently, you can kind of tell things are off. Well, in a survivor's mindset, they look at patterns as well. And if I know today is Thursday, he goes out with Billy Bob and John and them, and they go get drunk, and he likes to come home and fight me. So I know if I go home and I go ahead and go to bed and I'm out the way and I got his dinner ready and the kids are in bed, I can kind of pinpoint his pattern. And I know that if I stay out of his way and I got everything just right, I'm safe tonight. And so we have to make sure that we are aware why people stay. I have children. I can't just up and leave. I have no job. He's controlling the money, right? I don't know where I'm going to go, because I've tried to talk to family and friends, and they say, well, girl, I can't help you this time. You know, it's me and all these kids up in here. I don't have no room for you and your 3 babies. So they stay, because I'd rather stay with the demon I know, and I have a roof over my head, and I take a few lumps and I'll heal, versus having my children out in the elements with a bunch of people that I don't know that can harm my children or me. There's lack of resources in certain areas. So you have to be mindful of that. If I can't get my kids in the shelter, if I can't get family support, what I'm going to do. So a lot of people stay for a lot of reasons. And then a lot of time they're planning to leave, right? They want to leave. They want to get to that safe space. They just have to learn how. And so some things that we work with under the Unity umbrella, as well as a lot of the agencies, is we help them with learning how to put up a safety plan. We put a safety plan in play, and we help plan ways for them to get out by having them put strategic items to the side: driver's license, social security cards, copies of birth certificates, trying to get shop records, because you'd be surprised how difficult it is to start over when you don't even have access to your own ID, or you've been locked inside your house from a deadbolt from the outside and all the windows are nailed shut, right? So this is the life a lot of people are living. So we have to be mindful of that and being responsive and making sure that we are being good friends to our people and we are empathizing with them, right? We have to make sure that once they get out or they're making that choice, don't judge them. Be empathetic to their situation. Be supportive. You know, find a relatable or recognizable angle to garner a safe space so they can trust you, because they've had a lot of people not seem like they care and not have that trust built up. So they have a hard time trusting people, right? And then you have to allow them to lead the conversation with you within their comfort level. Don't automatically, well, girl, if you can't talk to me right now, then I can't help you. I can't help you. I can't be here for you. Because guess what? She didn't have this person browbeating her, probably verbally beating her down, constantly manipulating her, gaslighting her, telling her all these horrible things by herself. And then I go over here to somebody that I thought I can trust, and then you do it. I might as well stay where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to know why people go back? Because they have the lack of support from family and friends. And that's crucial to a survivor's safety, right? And be consistent, right? Don't start it off and say they can stay with you, and then you start nudging them a little bit. Well, you know about how long you're going to be here?
Mm-hmm.
You know about, the kids are eating a little too much. It's getting a little thin. My own kids can't even really eat because, do you know when you're going to do this? When most survivors are just learning to just breathe and relax their shoulders because they've been living in a tornado for so long. So we have to make sure that we know how to be good friends. And that just means being some of the things that you see on the screen.
Angelina, you had your hand up, but I see it down now. Did you have a comment?
Go ahead, Ms. Angelina.
Oh, it's okay. I didn't want to stop. She was on a roll. I didn't want to interfere.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention real quickly when you mentioned I am a survivor of domestic violence. I was in a relationship from my ex-husband who's passed on now. I didn't kill him, but hey, those thoughts. But you mentioned why survivors don't leave, and that is one of the questions I was asked many times. But one of the things, and I'll share this if we have time, even on the end.
Yeah.
That one of the reasons why we don't leave is fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
When we leave, what happens? And the system has failed us so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And even I'm gonna take you, Miss Kimmy was saying, she's telling her age, and I'm gonna tell you mine a little bit. But I was in Cleveland, Ohio, and I called the police that one particular night and reported my abuser and was abusing me. And the police officer said, and I quote, "Ma'am, who's hurting you?" And I said, "My husband." And his words were, I quote, "Ma'am, that's your husband. There's nothing that we can do." Now, that's dated. That's dated. That was the law. If a husband was doing it to you, it was nothing that can be done. But I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Yeah, and thank God you're here, right, today to tell the story and be a champion for the voiceless, because she too is a champion for survivors through her agency over at BEBE Angels. So we're very, very thankful for her, and she's under the Unity umbrella as well. So thank you for sharing, Miss Angelina. We appreciate it. So, and speaking about that, she's right. It is the fear of the unknown. That is an added point to why a lot of people don't know. And that was just speaking to some of the things. They just don't know what's out there on the other side, because a lot of them have been living it for so long that they don't know what's on the other side. So it's unfortunate that a lot of people are living through the trauma. And so in this next turn, you have to look at, how do you think that a lot of people got to certain situations? How did they become abusers? How do you think some people kind of fell under the umbrella of remaining in a relationship or not identifying that they were in this situation? And you have to think about some of those things, what we call ACEs. And I know that some people that have around me, I've mentioned ACEs quite a bit because it's a key component to why a lot of people are the way they are. It's what makes a lot of people tick. It's what makes most of us tick. And those are our adverse childhood experiences. And so those ACEs are just experiences that you've experienced since you were a young child, and that has grown up and created what we call trauma scars. And those trauma scars come from several factors, socioeconomic factors within your home and where you grew up. And so some households, when you were younger, you like mine, had abuse in it, right? Mine had physical abuse. Mine had verbal abuse that I grew up within. I experienced sexual abuse at a very young age. I also went through emotional abuse. And then you have, the component of neglect. So you have those children who are being neglected those are going to be trauma scars that they're going to have to endure and have to do something with it, because it doesn't go away. You don't just forget what happened to you. Your childhood is what makes us us. It's what makes us tick as we got older. And so if you never address those, you never know when a trigger is going to come. So why is it important to understand and recognize what those are, right? It's important because it makes you who you are, and how relationships, whether you're in an intimate or non-intimate, whether it's a friendship, a best friend, or lack thereof. Why do you have a hard time with staying in a relationship, holding down a job? Why are people going through incarceration today? Because they have unresolved ACEs. And you have a big percentage of those men and women who are incarcerated today because of their ACEs, unresolved ACEs. And so we have to make sure that we recognize those. And when you go in a relationship with someone, you think about it. You get into a new relationship and you're speaking to someone, and then the next thing you know, you guys are in a full argument, and you never know why. You don't even know how it really started, but something you said, maybe some gesture you did, might have triggered that person's suppressed trauma scar, and now they're reacting, and you're like, well, you blowing this way out of proportion. That's because they're going back to something that might have triggered a scar. And sometimes when they've been physically hit and you get too close in a person's space, or they have a sense of abandonment where there's a parent or an absentee parent in the family, there may have been some kind of mental illness in the household, right? Household is dysfunctional. Parent may be incarcerated, so you have that a sense of abandonment in a child's eye. I just know that my parent is not there, whether it's my mother or my father, or the person that was my caregiver or my guardian. Then you have a mother who might have not dealt with her trauma scars, and she didn't know how to love you. And so now you have a problem with loving your child the way that they deserve to be loved. And then you may have that substance abuse in the family, or even divorce, right? A lot of kids go through some things for us divorce. Now I was in a household that I looked happy-go-lucky, and the next thing you know, I got to go and choose which home I'm going to stay in at the majority of the time, where I'm going to go to school from. And then I have to kind of bounce like a ping pong in between these two households. And I didn't sign up for this, because that's not what my friend's household looks like. Mm-hmm. So you have to deal with a lot of components when you're dealing with individuals, and you have to understand what ACEs are, and if you have some, and what you need to do to address your own. And so this speaks to just our incarceration, and why some people do what they do and what makes them tick. And so just defined by Merriam-Webster are just negative experiences that happen between the ages of 1 and 17. So throughout your entire childhood, adolescent years, you have to think about those ACEs and what you are experiencing and what you are feeling, what you are hearing, and all of those things. And all of those play a component in your trauma scars, because we all have them. And then you have almost 100% that say ACEs versus perpetrators are almost 100% intersected. And it's just a person who finds themselves involved in some form of criminal act resulting in incarceration, and that has experienced some form of ACEs. However, not all incarcerated individuals are affected by ACEs. However, studies have shown that a person's childhood experiences can be a direct relative to how they react during conflict as an adult. Mm-hmm. All right. So, and it just depends, and ACEs have scores. And so the higher your ACE scores is, the more likely you are to encounter legal issues and incarceration. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about your childhood, and you think about you as parents in this room, in this, and let's talk about it Tuesday on this platform, you think about some of the things and the effects that ACEs, or the lack of domestic violence, and with those intersect with ACEs, what that looks like, right? You have new generations of violent families. Do we have a high crime rate here in Memphis? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Is 85% of the crime that we have now experience has some form of domestic undertone? Absolutely. You have your runaways, right? We have a lot of our children that is missing now, right? So we have a lot of those ones having to share, right? I know I'm getting them on my page on a daily basis. Please share, right? How many people in here can say that they share those posts? When somebody said my such and such is missing, can you please share?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have to share those, because it doesn't take you very long, right? It don't take you very long at all to push the share button.
And don't cost you nothing.
Don't cost you anything, right? Violence in our streets, substance abuse, food addictions, right? How many in here would love to break up with food? Right? Sexual assaults, right? We was at a training tonight, myself and Oriana, along with some other law enforcement and others tonight, with the Crime Victim and Rape Crisis Center, who is centered around sexual assault. And we talked about some of the things about strangulation and what that looks like, right? Being a capital Class A felony here in Tennessee. And it's just a violent act. And you can't talk about domestic violence without making sure that people are educated on what strangulation is. And it's just the external impediment of the air circulation versus what we as Black people normally say, this is called what?
Choking.
Choking. But it's not. Choking is something that you internalize and that impedes your breathing apparatus, right? Strangulation is where somebody is physically applying pressure and causing you difficulty into breathing on down to death or to lose consciousness. So you have to think about that, and just know that if that is happening to you, you should speak up. Definitely try to speak up, try to get out of that situation, because it just takes that long for you to leave here. Date rape. We talked about that. I have a young lady right now that's just called me. She's kind of in conflict right now about filing a police report, because she doesn't know how the perpetrator or the abuser is going to respond. So she's afraid, and she's dealing with everyday life right now. But this is a very new thing that happened to her. And so she has a sense of embarrassment, and she's kind of almost beating herself up. She's guilty, but she has no reason to feel guilty. And so if she steps up and she decides she wants to move forward in any form of prosecution, we'll be there for her. But just know that that's something that happens, right? You should speak up. You have the right to say, no, this is your personal body. And nobody has the right to violate your body in no shape, form, or fashion, whether it's in a marriage, whether you're dating. You could have had all the kissing and rubbing and all of that good stuff. You could have went so far as to have oral sex one to the other. But if you say no to penetration, you have the absolute right to say no. And if they take advantage and they say, do not stop, you have the right to file a police report. And that is assault, and that is rape. Okay. So just so you know that. Sexual harassment. Use of pornography. A lot of people like to manipulate and use power and control. You might have did some type of video, sex video with someone, and then you turn around and they say, well, we broke up now. I'm going to release this video and put all your business out there. That is a crime. If you do that, just know that is a crime, and you could go to jail for that, because that is the illegal use of illicit. It prohibits you to post anything about another person without their written consent. Teen pregnancy, we know that with the revocation of the law, Roe versus Wade, we know that teen pregnancy is a high. We're now finding more babies who are being abandoned, who've been thrown away, and just not loved, right? Violence at school. We've seen the school shootings and truancy. So we all know too well that children who live in violent homes have a plethora of other things to have to deal with in life. Their home should be a safe haven. So we want to make sure that we're protecting our children. All right, so we've reached the end of it. Any questions? And I'll minimize this so now I can see you all. And then I will bring Miss Denise back in on my page, and then I'll stop sharing.
one of the things I wanted to make a comment about is when you talked about the unknown, or Miss Angelina had mentioned the unknown. That's why some people don't leave. And, you know, we're the person that is trying to figure out or trying to support a person. Think about when you had situations that you would not have done because of the unknown. Sometimes we gotta, you know, it may not be the same situation, but have you been in that scenario where you had the fear of unknown? Because some, you know, we may say stuff like, well, what I would do, which I would imagine would be the worst thing that you can say to somebody in that scenario, because you don't know what you do, number one, and you don't know what they're up against, right? So even at the fear of the unknown, I mean, we can all relate to at some point not making a decision or a choice because of the fear of the unknown. So just being able to look at it from that standpoint, not just because it's the abuse situation, but just that concept of why you to make a decision. Or, you know, I could think of plenty of times where it's just like, ooh, I don't know. And it's easier to stay where you are, whether it's good or bad, right? Yeah. They say until you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and that relates to a lot of things. So just being sensitive to that particular concept, because of we may have at some point in time found ourselves in a scenario similar based on that concept, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oriana, you got a question? I see your hand raised.
Hey, Kimmy.
Hey.
I just wanted to add something, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
When talking about children, I just wanted to throw out there that, you know, in one of the services that I provide is expert witness services in cases involving domestic violence. And so that has usually been in civil court, family court, divorce type situation. And I think it's very important that people know that, contrary to popular belief, the mom doesn't always get custody. And oftentimes in family court, it's viewed as, well, like you were talking about earlier with DCS, if the children have not been abused, then the family court does not look at it as being a danger to the child. And they feel like by the divorce happening, then, you know, the abuse ends. But we all know that post-separation abuse occurs also, and the use of the children still happens during court. So, you know, I would highly encourage that anybody who is in the least bit passionate about domestic violence and its impact on children, contact some of these family law attorneys and these judges in particular, to make sure that they are trained in domestic violence, because according to the research that I did in prepping for those cases, there's a lot that are not trained, and it is not mandatory for them to have any training on domestic violence, even though most cases of divorce involve some form of domestic violence.
Absolutely.
And great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Oriana is right. She's definitely one. She's also under the Unity umbrella, but she also is heavily passionate, and she's skilled and certified in domestic violence. And her component kind of adds that special touch of self-defense under her. So her organization speaks to self-defense, and she helps survivors, those that want that extra security on how do I protect myself, because vulnerable is very vulnerable to not know how to protect yourself. And you can't outright tell somebody, go get a gun and do this, or go get a weapon and carry a weapon, because in certain places, certain ways, if you get caught with an open knife in your car, and you may get a charge for that. Here in the state of Tennessee, it's illegal to carry a knife around in your car. Right. And unconcealed, if you don't have a concealed license for your firearms. So you got to be mindful of the laws of the states that you're in and what they will and will not accept. But you should definitely make sure that you're able to protect yourself in other ways. And Oriana is great at that. Miss Opal looks like she has her hand up. Did we lose Miss Opal?
She's trying to figure out how to unmute.
Oh, okay. Are we able? Okay.
I was was going to speak on a situation of domestic violence, abuse. I was engaged to a gentleman who hit the wrong person.
We know what that means.
He was trying to control me mentally, physically, and emotionally, till he made the mistake of trying to be physical. Now, he's 300 pounds, and I was a good 132 pounds, whatever, years ago. And all I saw was blood, and it wasn't my blood I was looking at.
Okay.
And I had a brand new glass coffee table, and he lunged to me, and I pushed him back, and he hit the floor. And I looked up in heaven, and I said, God, no, that's wrong. He's supposed to hit that table.
Yeah.
Because he was a diabetic.
Oh.
And he had hit that table. I was gonna, oh my God, ooh, oh my God, you bleeding, oh my God. 5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Then I would have called the ambulance, and I told him that. He said, "You're trying to kill me." I said, yeah, you hit me.
Yes.
The last man that hit me was my daddy, and that was many years ago.
Yes.
And I said, I'm my own person. I'm my own woman. And he just tried to play with my mind. But if I were a weak-minded woman, I would have succumbed to his thing.
Yeah.
But he hit the wrong person at that moment.
I love that phrase, the wrong person. I love it.
Somebody said in the chat, and I guess any of you or your colleagues can answer this question: how can friends and family safely support a loved one in an abusive relationship?
And so, yeah, that was one of the slides in there that we had spoke about by being a friend, just remaining open, right? Being empathetic, making sure that you're non-judgment, right? And do what you say. If you say that you're going to be there and be supportive, let them talk when they're comfortable. Let them get to a space that they're comfortable in speaking, and making sure that you are going to follow through and walk with them. Because if they take that journey and that step to say, I'm going to step out here and I'm trusting you that you told me that you're going to have me, at least don't leave me. Don't let me be out here by myself. And that's where a lot of people, for our survivors, have a difficult time. And I know Miss Angelina, she could probably, like I said, she is a survivor as well. She can speak to that. And if Oriana wants to jump in, or I don't know if Miss Elyse is still on here, and Miss Jetina is on here as well. So I have a few colleagues on here that we deal with. And so either one of them, if they want to chime in and speak to their experience, they can definitely jump on and add that component too. But we got some hands raised. Oh, look at my daughter. My daughter got a hand. You got a question, girl. Come on, Nia.
Yeah, well, I don't really have a question. I have a comment.
Okay.
But I will say, well, I guess I should, hold on, let me turn on the camera. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. But no, I will say that I do, and I will appreciate the fact of when you did say something as far as basically when you were discussing about children in the household and how they can't see things and stuff like that. Now, this is my mom, everybody, and I will say I would have never took it or understood that domestic violence was more so, I guess, centered around, keeping the children away from the other parent and stuff like that. I would have never taken that. But me, myself, I do have a child. And so now understanding and seeing the different outlooks of it all, that I did endure some of that when my child was younger. My child's father, well, he's 4, but at the time, like I said, him and I had a lot of verbal words said to one another, to where hands were put on each other, but now seeing the outlook as basically knowing that that is domestic violence. So I appreciate you for speaking on that topic, because I would have been out here, oh, I ain't never been in an abusive relationship in my life, and things of that sort. And I was always one of those ones. I want my child to have both of the parents in the household, but it did take some learning and some growing to realize that they have to see the other parent. It is important for them to know the other parent, because I have a son. I can't teach him everything about being a man.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing. Kismet.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you now. Yes.
So, what was interesting to hear was when I was in the home with my mom and my stepdad, and they used to call it fight back then. They fought. He would jump on her. But I thought he was fighting my mama, but not knowing how it affected me and never using the term that was I a part of her domestic violence situation? So
Yes.
I don't know how do you explain that? Because he would, jump on her in front of the children, and they would fight in front of the children, but we would just cry and be like, stop, stop, don't hurt my mom, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So
but
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Are you finished? I didn't know if you were finished.
yeah, I guess, I never thought of it as was I a part of that domestic violence? I do know that a lot of what I saw came into my marriage, even though it wasn't physical, there was a lot of control there. But, the way you describe it, I was like, okay, was I a part of her domestic violence?
Yes, you were. And that's what those ACEs are. That's what those adverse childhood experiences were. I slept next door to my mother's room, and I knew just as good when it got started because I'm such a light sleeper, and I knew exactly when it started. And it took me well into my 30s until I realized that I was having a hard time staying in a healthy relationship, because I knew that when the arguing with them started, the next thing I heard was the physical component, and it would spill out of the bedroom into the hallway. And so we would hear her scream. And so for me, as I got older, I equated arguments with my mate or disagreements to the next step of physicality. And so I had to get into therapy, and I had to start to go through and address those trauma scars that I didn't realize I had, because arguments to me, next step to me in my mind, was the physical violence, because that's what I witnessed as a child. So yes, that's what that community looks like. That's what trauma scars are. And you have to address those as you are getting older, if that's something that falls to you, because sometimes it hinders relationships, even with friends and family members. You just never know what's going to spark that trigger.
Yes, I saw, Lucretia, you took your hand down. You have something you want to share? And then I see you, Ariana and Bree.
I just didn't need to keep it up. I did put something in the chat, but I
see it. Yeah.
I can also relate, because my mother, I knew right off, if my stepdad did not have, when he got paid, the money that he needed for her rent or whatever, it was going to be a fight. And my brother and my auntie would always come and get us, my mother's sister. But my husband went through that as well. And as he was growing up, I saw it myself too. And it always made me say that, okay, this is not going to happen to me and in my family. This is not what I want my children to see. That sort of geared me into working with children, but geared me also into going into social work and helping women of domestic violence. But both of us had the same kind of background we saw as we was growing up, and we vowed that this is something that we do not want to raise our children up in. So sometimes you see it, and it affect you in a way that you say, oh no, this is not going to be like, this is not going to be my pattern, and I'm gonna break that cycle in my family.
Yeah.
But I had a question in the chat, and I just want to see what was your response to that. But thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah, I've seen that. She asked the question, if a male is in denial of being in a domestic situation, how do you help him? Well, the first thing you can do with that is he has to recognize it, and he has to want to get help for himself. You can encourage him, by being supportive, and encourage him to get therapy, and maybe start to kind of, invite, if you have a minister that, someone that he can confide in, somebody that he trusts, that that he respect. Those are the ones that's going to kind of gauge him into looking and recognizing, stepping within. And then some men never get it, right? Because they don't get it from women. Oftentimes they think you're trying to emasculate them. So we got to be mindful of that too. So you just never know how to get that person to respond and to help if they're the ones that's in denial. That's something that's self-recognition. And oftentimes it takes a situation for a lot of them to occur in order for them to really realize it's an issue.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bree?
Hello, can y'all see me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, y'all. I'm my mom. Hey, y'all. Kimmy is my mom as well. So nice to meet you guys. So I just wanted to speak on the factor of, and this is pushing back to another conversation that you had in the beginning, basically explaining how you could get sometimes in a relationship, and people feel like if you gave them access to you, that they have, I guess I would say they will have continuing access to you, and breaking that like barrier of like, I don't want to do this anymore, or like a change of mind. um I've had an experience with a guy, like, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, and it's like, well, I didn't get mines off, so I need to get mines off, and like pushes itself back on me. And like, just like laying there like, okay, like, is this about to happen? Like, like what's about to go down? And it comes to a point where I'm getting up, literally bra and underwear on, like, I need to get out of here. Like, I need to get out of here now. And we're the point where I'm fighting to like get out of this man's house. And he's like, no, no, like, basically fighting, and to a point where my hand gets smacked with my phone and things in my hand, different things like that, with a point I have to grab a wine bottle, like, I'm going to hit you in the head if you put your hands on me again, like triggering me to the certain point where I didn't even know I would get triggered from. So I definitely want to chime in on the part where guys have this thought process, like, we've already, in the moment, or we already in there. Once it's a no situation, I think it's kind of hard for guys to realize that situation and not really taking a step back to really think, like, that's really affecting me, like, not wanting to put yourself back in the situation to where, if you're in the moment, like, you kind of lay there and just like, okay, like, I'll just go ahead here and take it, like, not knowing what the reaction would be. And I think that was my first time dealing with something like that, and I was just like, whoa, like, we're the point I had to call 911, so I definitely do agree with, like, it can get very domestic. It can get very scary for the unknown, because you just don't know how a man will react to a certain situation when you're in it. So, yeah.
And what I hear from that is understanding we have the right to change our mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was, you have the right to change your mind at any point. And then I would imagine the number of women who just keep going through it, just not realizing I have the right to change my mind. And then at the point where you change your mind and they don't listen, that now you're in a situation where your rights have now been violated, right? So helping women to understand that piece of it is I think, even, I bet you there's more women we realize in that situation than not, right? So, you know, good for you for fighting your way, you know, through that, because there's a, like you said, you don't know how they're going to react, or they toughen up on you and you just ride it out feeling that you'll be safer. So how much does that even reflect just in general domestic violence scenarios, right? And being able to do that. So, and, you know, we try to tell, I have 2 daughters, before they went to college. I just always say, be careful about getting yourself caught in a situation where there's no turning back, like where you don't have control. Don't make a 5-minute decision that can cost you the rest of your life because you know, just doing something. And of course, you know, something happened, not blaming you, but just as much as you can, try not to put yourself in a situation, especially in the college life, people drinking, stuff happen. We know that's, if you go to a college campus, there's a whole lot of work to be done just for people to understand their rights. Because that right, I do have the right to change my mind. And I think it's a big piece of it. One thing I wanted to add, from what you were saying earlier with the cycle, I remember having a friend, and she said every time she would spend money, her husband would get a notice. And so she was doing something. She said, "Girl, I can't buy that because he's gonna get a notice." I said, "I think that's financial abuse." Like, and I said, "Girl, I think that's financial abuse." And we just kind of almost like kind of laughed it out. But I'm like, because the fact that you're afraid to spend money, and the fact that he's getting notified when you spend money, I'm like, that just don't seem healthy.
Absolutely not.
Right?
Absolutely,
but you know, I got no degree in nothing, but just some
it definitely is financial abuse, and that is a way of control for a lot of people, and that's a lot of people's life today. And that's why a lot of women, more so now, are working and making their own money because they want to have that self-sufficient, and they want to make sure that if something ever goes awry, I can stand on my own. I can take care of myself, and I can take care of me and my children if that's what their relationship status is, or one or the other. But yeah, that's a big thing. I think Miss Elyse had her hand up after Bree, and then she put it down. Elyse, did you want to go?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me first say, excellent job, Kimmy. Thank you so much for the invite to even be here. That was really good. And I know you kind of invited us to kind of speak in our lane or our lens. And I just have to say, when you talked about like ACEs and those trauma scars, not trying to change the subject tonight by any means, because it's definitely connected. When you think about over half of the children who grow up in domestically violent homes, over half of them enter domestic violent relationships as an adult, right? And so I just think it's so important that we kind of expand our mind and our paradigm as it relates to how we define domestic violence. And I want to do that with this quote. You guys probably are familiar with it, but it says, when a child hits a child, we call it aggression. When a child hits an adult, we call it hostility. When an adult hits an adult, we call it assault. But when an adult hits a child, we call it discipline.
Absolutely.
And so really expanding that, you know, like how domestic violence is violence within the home, right? And so why are we not including that when it comes to how we treat our children? But it's kind of just want to throw that out there as food for thought when it comes to that discipline piece and domestic violence.
Put that in the chat, Miss Elyse, if you don't mind. Elyse is one of our partners as well. Well, she's up under the Unity umbrella. She's a referral partner for us.
You sent me a image. Was that image a part of your Unity Let me see.
Yeah, that's our help, how to get help and resources and reach us. But I'll just highlight a few of our partners. There's BEBE Angels. You can probably see her up there, Miss Angelina Hines. She does fantastic work under the domestic violence realm. Miss Oriana Holmes, who you've had the pleasure of speaking with tonight, also. She has that is it. Okay. So that is that explains Unity Services Alliance and all of the services that fall under the umbrella of us. And then we have some other individual organization, and you can see Miss Hines. She kind of right above that little jigsaw puzzle. Her little logo is a little light, but as you can see, that big, beautiful purple behind her in her background over there.
Can all of you guys put your organization so this can be kept in, be on the recording. If you can put in the chat put Unity and your organization and then your contact information, then we can capture it all in the chat. So if all the ladies on here that's a part of your circle could do that, then we can capture that information.
Great. Thank you. And thank you again, Elyse, too, for that. I appreciate all of you guys for showing up for me tonight. It really, really means a lot. And you're engaging tonight. So thank you.
This.
Yeah. And then I think Hines has a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, real quickly, let me lower my hand. I just wanted to add while we were talking, and I know you mentioned a while back how on one of the comments, a question was, how can a person safely with your friends and family? But I want to just leave you all with this real quickly, to let people know it is okay not to be okay.
Absolutely.
Don't feel guilty because we are victimized twice, 3 times, 4 times. So don't feel guilty. Don't feel like it is your fault, because we are accused over and over again of why and how and why did you and all of that. So when you ask the question, how can friends and family safely help? By being that support. I had 2 ride or die sisters. One of them passed away now, bless her heart. But I had 2 ride or die sisters that whatever I was going through, they were there with me. And also to know that when you involve your family, a lot of times when you involve them, they also involved in being a subject to be harmed. So please be careful, because we have seen it so many times. He'll get to your family if he can. He'll kill anybody in sight to get to you. So when you're making those safe plans and everything with the survivor, please be aware and be safe and let them know that you are there for them to the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hines.
So, going back to this. So, Kimmy, so tell us, so Unity is a collection of different organizations with different specialties that collaborated together to be a resource for people in this situation. Did I describe that right?
You hit the nail on the head.
Okay. Awesome. I remember you telling me that, but yeah, so please, everybody, put your information in the chat so we can capture it that way as well. And did you want to say anything else, Kimmy, about this flyer or the last one, the other one you gave me?
No, just if you guys want a copy, or if you have anything you have, I have Miss Denise's. I'm sure she's captured everybody's email. If you're comfortable with her sharing your email with me, I can send you this flyer for your reference. That way, if you need to reach out, if you want to be a friend, if you want to join under the Unity umbrella for your organization, if it's something that you want to offer the community, please, I'm willing to meet with you. I definitely would love, the bigger the collaborative, because no one agency can do it alone. It takes the community, which is what I spoke about in the very beginning, for why we need to do what we do. What you're doing on this platform is remarkable and admirable. And I thank you so very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak on something that is so near and dear to me and what I do every single day. I try to be a blessing to those around me and be a support for others. And I thank all of them for trusting me to, kind of sit in this seat and do what I do. And they trust me, and I trust them just as equal. I think Miss Opal has a question before you, if you get ready to end.
Got a question, Opal? No stories. I know Opal personally. Got a question?
Okay.
No, I just was a comment when it said, will you be there for family members? I had a brother who was abusive to his wife, and I went over there, and he was being crazy. Anyway, I just told her in front of him, I say, if you ever decide you want to cook some grits,
Great ball.
The family has got your back. We got your back. We'll bail you out.
Yeah. And I would say, okay, so the point I would make from Opal's story is be wrong. I mean, when something's wrong, it's wrong. If it's your family member, don't just support your family members even when you know they're wrong.
Absolutely.
So, support what is, call the people
right.
out. Call the people out, especially when it's maybe they'll listen to their family member versus somebody coming that's not their family member. But when your family member is wrong, we got to stand up for what's right, right? Being able to stand up.
And his son was abusing his wife, and I didn't know, but I found out about it. I said, girl, I got you.
Hold them accountable is what that just sums up to be.
Yeah.
We have to do better as a family. Most people, like I said, we grew up, what goes on in here stays in here. And we know that old fable needs to go out the window. It's just as untrue as the saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt. And we're all here because we're talking about those words that hurt and that stick with us forever. So definitely, that's an old fable. And then we got 2 more hands up.
So Nia and then Ariana.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just have a quick question. So I have a friend who basically is, in my eyes, basically dealing with some type of domestic violence. I'll say that. They have pretty much in the past had issues where, hands were put on each other, kids were kind of involved, but she's now in a situation to where she's back with this person. And, trying to be there for her as a friend, pretty much just some advice on how can I basically encourage her a little bit more to let her know that she needs to break free from the situation, because it's bad to the point to where there's so he's a truck driver. He's always gone on the road, but he has, he gets the notifications and, he questions about the money, and there's cameras in the house. And so she feels as though she's tiptoeing around the house because, he got cameras in the room, cameras in the living room. She unplugs them, turns the cameras the other way. She feels like she can't say certain things, and she's supposed to be comfortable in a house. And so she's looking to move, but she's discouraged because she's applied, she's gotten, denied for places. So she's like, okay, I have to just stay. But then she'll call and be like, I'm crying, I'm tired, I have to have his food cooked, I have to have all of this stuff. But, how long it's like you want to be there for them, you want to be a friend to them, but when they're constantly, resisting and pulling away, what is some type of advice that I can give her, or basically try to do to continuously be there for her, to let her know that there is a way out of this. You don't have to stay, you don't have to put up with this. And so she's like, I feel as though I'm tiptoeing around, I can't say anything and things of that sort. And then, she has her kids and stuff like that. So she's overwhelmed, but she's also in a situation to where she doesn't know how to get out. She feels as though he's basically paying all the bills, he's doing all of this, but she's stuck.
So she's in that good cycle of power and control, right? She's sitting directly in it, and she is the poster child for that. And what I'll do is, I know Oriana got her hand up and she's fantastic with this too. She actually has a book that she has an alternative to power and control. And so I'll let her respond to that for you. I am familiar with this story, and I know we've talked about this story before, but I'll let it kind of reign true for my counterpart over there. Go ahead, Oriana.
Alrighty. Well, actually, the first thing that I was going to say for anyone who had the question of how to be a good support person, there's a book by Jodie Farr called The Urgency of Awareness. And one of the things that she says in the book has really stuck with me, and it's something that I use even when doing expert witness testimony, right? She said that people can change some of their most deeply held beliefs if three things happen. If the information is given to them by someone they trust, if the information is given in a way that they can understand it, and if they're not made to feel stupid for believing the former. Okay. Mm-hmm. So those are three things that to keep in mind when trying to help anyone, that they have to trust you, and that trust has to be built. If it's not, the information has to be given in a way that they can understand it. So a lot of times people who don't recognize it probably need someone else to be able to tell them what those behaviors are. And then not making them feel stupid for whatever decisions that they're making. What Kimmy was referring to as far as the book, which thanks for that, Kimmy, is what I realized is that we all talk about the power and control wheel in advocacy. But there are so many survivors who are stuck even after the relationship ends, trying to rebuild their lives and don't understand what just happened and why they keep getting attracted to this same type of person or vice versa. And so what I noticed is there was never a positive inversion of that power and control wheel. So I developed one, and it's the empowered and in control wheel. And so for every spoke of that power and control wheel, there's a positive version of that. So that it's not just a pattern of abusive behaviors that we're focused on. We're focused on what are the pattern of positive behaviors that a survivor can take to be able to get their power and control back. So with that said, with your friend, I think that one of the things that I would recommend is that if you haven't already talked about those particular behaviors that he's doing that's abusive, sometimes it's better to see it in black and white. If you don't have a power and control wheel, you can get them anywhere, right? I'm sure Kimmy has like 15 billion copies. Yeah, exactly. And so just being able to relate it to what they're going through and show the relation in black and white, because sometimes they need to see it on paper. Sometimes people are visual. And also with the barriers that she's bringing up, if you guys can have a conversation about what all of the barriers are, and you have the resources to match up to that will alleviate those barriers, then you can really get down to, potentially what the real issue is, or if there's something beneath all of those barriers. So knowing what the resources are that would potentially help with those barriers. And then if you have answers for all of that, and she's still wanting to stay or choosing to stay in that relationship, then that's when you have to look at what else is possibly going on there.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I was just curious because, like I said, it's just certain. I've experienced and had a lot of friends throughout life, but actually having a mom who deals with this who has a business that's centered around this, and is hearing her say certain things just pertaining to just even going out. Like if I say, hey girl, let's go out. Oh, well, I have to ask, let me make sure that it's okay. And, things of that sort. Is more of like, okay, so you're a grown woman, the do's and the don'ts, but it's also like, okay, well, I don't want to do this, and he gets mad. But it's like we have the same conversations, but it's like it's not really registering, because she's like, oh, I know him, and it's this, it's that, and it was basically gotten to the point where she's like tiptoeing around him, applying for places because she doesn't want him to know she's trying to leave.
Yeah. And so she's planning to leave right now, and that's what is a good state, and she's at the best state now. And if she's in fear for her safety, there are protocols and steps that we could take to ensure that she's safe, that he cannot find her, and that she can have some healthy resources to help her transition out. Even if she can't get a place, there are places that she could go that would give her some space to allow for that time for her to kind of think about what her next move is. So right now, she would, like Oriana said, she did some great things, breaking it down to you. And we can talk offline because I know it's getting late, but we'll definitely, if she wants to get help and you want to be supportive to her, we'll sit down and we'll talk about a safety plan and try to help her get out of that situation.
And maybe have her watch the video, and maybe she'll see herself in the video.
That too.
So when Ariana said, somebody she trusts, maybe just looking and hearing, maybe she can identify with some of the information. Just tell her, hey, watch this for the first 30 minutes or 15 minutes, and maybe she'll see herself in some of the information.
Okay.
That she can, that maybe she'll connect and she can trust the information, as she was saying. So, oh my gosh. So every time I have these things, you guys, I'll be thinking I'm going to just do this one little piece. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to 5 more subjects on this same subject.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. But I thank you. I thank everybody a part of the Unity. I always leave with this, in the talk with this slide, because my whole goal first of all, thank you ladies for empowering me, helping me to empower, right? So because of your willingness to come on 8:00 at night, it's almost 10:00. Praise y'all. Thank the Lord for y'all. But I know a lot of times when we have topics like this where get kind of people can relate to, it do last longer than an hour. So I appreciate everybody's patience and willingness to stay on. But also I challenge everybody on this call, because I'm going to share this to my Empowered by DS YouTube page. So we record them, we're going to share them, and to share it, empower. You have now been empowered to empower, right? So it's not our goal to be on here, because we are our sister's keeper. You get some information. It's not intended for you to keep the information. You have gotten on here, of course, to empower yourself, but how can you share and help somebody else along the way? Because we listen, and I remember Kimmy saying to me that people are going to hear something that they did not realize was abuse, right? Like my girlfriend, she was like, I was there. So now I'm realizing that I was impacted as well. So that's what we want to do, is be able to now help somebody else who can help somebody else who can help somebody else, right? So please share. And I will, all the recordings that we have are on my Empowered Ideas circle. I look forward to learning more about the Unity ladies as well, because if I can help you get your message out, that's what I'm very passionate about. And there, because everybody responded, you can tell kind of where your area was just by your response. So collectively, we can change the world, y'all. We can change this doggone world. If nothing else, one person at a time, right? One person at a time. And I'll say this. I remember my parents got separated when I was younger. I think about 4 or 5 years old. But my dad has always been in my life. And this is kind of funny. My grandmother used to always joke about how my sister and I was like, we daddy this. We were both about our dad. As I got older, I realized that there were some issues, right? You learn early, like, oh, there's some stuff going on that I know nothing about.
Right.
But the one thing I'll say about my mother, I learned it later about the stuff that was going on that wasn't healthy. I should have known, because I got a sister and some brothers, right? So, so I knew I should have known something was going on.
Yeah.
But the thing I can appreciate about my mother, she made us every Sunday night when we got our hair combed to call our father.
Okay.
So she never used us as, although what she went through, she never used us as a part of her her threatening, or she made sure we still, and I always tell women that it's a different type of relationship. So when you're talking about the domestic and the control and using your children in that situation, I would always use that as an example. Didn't realize really how powerful it was until I learned later what she went through, but she still chose to do that. Right. So understanding, I think if more women understood, because there's so many women who do that. I'm not going to let you see your child thing. I'm like, you're not hurting nobody, but they can understand that is not a healthy thing. Right. In the process of growing and nurturing your children. That's a whole nother, let's talk about it Tuesday show. But really, I've always admired that of her after I understood what she went through with him, but still chose to enforce that we still have that relationship with him. So but that's it. That's all. So thank y'all very, very much, you guys, for being on tonight. It was good. This was juicy. This was juicy good. I look forward to having a conversation with all of y'all, just to see how I can support you. You know, what message you want to share. Please, everybody, join. I hear echo. Please, everybody, join our Decide Tribe if you're on our Facebook, so that you can also be able to share the stuff, so everybody know what you're doing. We want to celebrate you. We want to share your information. If I can help you get more information out to others, love for you to come out to some of our experiences and learn more about us as well. So that's it. That's all we had. You coming? We have Alabama in the house. We got Mississippi, Tennessee. I don't know if we have somebody got off. I think everybody else is more local, I believe. So thank y'all. Y'all have a great rest of the evening. I look forward to connecting with each one of y'all. Have a good night.
Good night, ladies.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good job, Kimmy. Thank you.